Lonely mountain man expected a small mail-order bride until a giant obese woman got off the train. The train whistle shrieked as steam hissed across the platform of Pine Ridge, Wyoming, in the spring of 1884. Silas Buck Thornton, a mountain man of 35, stood tall with a hand-painted sign that read, "Miss Lily Rose." For 6 months he had written letters back and forth with a mail-order bride. Her words had painted a picture of a small, delicate woman who longed for a quiet life in the mountains. Buck had built his hopes around that promise. He had prepared a neat cabin, carved a rocking chair sized for a petite woman, and even bought fabric for dresses in modest measurements. He wanted someone gentle, someone light as a feather beside the roughness of his own life. The train screeched to a stop, iron wheels grinding. Passengers spilled out, miners with dust-stained faces, mothers tugging children by the hand, weary travelers stepping onto the wooden boards. Buck scanned the crowd, waiting for the dainty figure he had pictured for months. Then he saw her, a towering woman, broad-shouldered and nearly 6 feet tall, stepped down from the carriage. Her dress strained against her frame, her long hair pinned back hastily, her trunk dragging heavily behind her. She must have weighed more than 350 pounds, yet her eyes, soft hazel and rimmed with nerves, searched the crowd until they landed on him. "Mr. Thornton?" she asked, her voice low and warm. "I'm Lily Rose Patterson." The platform fell into murmurs. A ranch hand snickered. A shopkeeper's wife whispered, "That giant? She's the mail-order bride?" Buck's mouth went dry. This was not the small, delicate woman from the letters. His heart thudded with disappointment, disbelief, and confusion. Yet Lily stood before him, trembling with both fear and hope. And in that charged silence, the story of their fate began. Lily Rose Patterson stood awkwardly on the platform, her trunk at her feet, her wide frame drawing stares from every direction. She had known this moment would be painful, but the look on Buck Thornton's face was worse than she imagined. His eyes, once kind in letters, now flashed with shock and disappointment. I'm sorry," Lily stammered, twisting her hands in front of her. "I wasn't honest about how I look. If I had told the truth, you never would have written me back." Her words trembled into the air, but Buck remained silent. His jaw worked, as though he fought to hold back the first words that came to his mind. Around them, Pine Ridge buzzed with whispers. "Good Lord, she's bigger than an ox," one man chuckled under his breath. "Small and delicate," she wrote. Another laughed. "Looks like she ate 3 small and delicate girls for breakfast." Children pointed openly, giggling until their mothers shushed them, though even the women's eyes shone with disdain. Lily's cheeks flamed red. She had endured ridicule her entire life in Chicago, where her size had barred her from decent work, companionship, or love. She had written lies in desperation, clinging to a sliver of hope that she might finally belong somewhere. Now, that fragile hope seemed to crumble under the weight of Buck's silence and the town's scorn. At last, Buck spoke, his deep voice strained. "You misled me, Miss Patterson." Lily nodded, tears threatening. "I know, and I will not trouble you further. I'll catch the next train out." She bent to lift her heavy trunk, but even that simple act betrayed her. The trunk barely budged, and her struggle drew snickers from the onlookers. Buck's conscience twisted. He had expected a small, gentle woman who could slip into the quiet life he had built. Instead, this giant of a woman frightened, humiliated, stood alone in a strange town, mocked by strangers, with nowhere to go. He cleared his throat. No, you won't be left here alone. Whatever lies were told, I won't abandon you at a train station like a stray dog. His words silenced some of the laughter, though his tone carried more obligation than warmth. Lily's eyes flickered with a brief, fragile gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Thornton." But the humiliation lingered. As they walked together toward his wagon, townsfolk craned their necks, whispering cruel jokes. "Poor Buck," someone muttered, "married himself a mountain." Buck's shoulders tensed, but he did not respond. Instead, he loaded her trunk onto the wagon himself, the wood groaning beneath its weight. When Lily climbed up onto the bench beside him, the seat creaked, and again laughter followed them down the road. The mountain man said little as they rode toward his cabin. Lily clasped her hands in her lap, staring down, her thoughts a storm of shame. She had risked everything for this chance, and already it felt broken. By the time the wagon left the town behind, Pine Ridge's jeers had faded into the wind. But the damage was done. Lily had been exposed, mocked, and rejected before her life with Buck had even begun. And though Buck's sense of honor had kept her from being abandoned, Lily could not shake the fear that pity was all she would ever receive from him. The wagon jolted along the dirt road leading out of Pine Ridge, its wheels grinding over rocks and ruts. The silence between Buck and Lily was thick, broken only by the creak of wood and the occasional grunt of the horses. Lily sat stiffly, her hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Every bump of the wagon made her feel larger, heavier, more out of place. She dared not look at Buck, whose gaze remained fixed on the road ahead. After nearly an hour, she finally whispered, I'll find a way to repay you for your kindness. Once I've earned enough money, I'll leave your cabin and trouble you no more." Buck's jaw tightened. "I didn't bring you out here for money, Miss Patterson. I brought you because I wouldn't leave a woman stranded. Whatever you are, liar or not, you're still under my care until we figure this out." His blunt words cut, but beneath them was something Lily could not ignore. Responsibility. Perhaps not affection, but not cruelty either. It was more than she had been shown in years. The road wound upward into the foothills, the air turning cooler, sharper. Snow still clung to the highest peaks despite the spring thaw. Lily's eyes widened at the sight of the vast wilderness, endless pines, rushing streams, deer darting between shadows. It was breathtaking, but intimidating. How could she ever belong in such a world? By late afternoon, the wagon reached Buck's cabin. It was small, sturdy, nestled at the edge of a clearing. Smoke curled from the chimney, and a split-rail fence surrounded a pen for goats and chickens. It was humble, but well-kept, the home of a man who lived simply and worked hard. Lily's heart lifted for a moment, until she tried the door. The frame was narrow, the threshold low. She ducked, turned sideways, and squeezed through, scraping her shoulder on the frame. The floorboards groaned beneath her weight. Inside, the cabin was neat but cramped. A single bed against one wall, a small table with 2 chairs, shelves filled with jars and tools. "This is your home?" Lily asked softly. "It is," Buck answered. "Built it myself. Not much, but it's enough." Lily lowered herself into a chair, and with a sharp crack, the wooden leg snapped. She tumbled sideways onto the floor, mortified. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, scrambling to right herself. but the small table tipped too, scattering tin plates and cutlery across the floor. Buck rushed forward, steadying her with his calloused hands. His face was unreadable, but his voice remained calm. Furniture can be fixed. Don't worry about it. But Lily saw the strain in his eyes, the hesitation he tried to mask. Everywhere she turned, she was too big, too heavy, too much. That night, Buck offered her the bed. "I'll sleep by the fire," he said gruffly. Lily shook her head. "No, I'll sleep on the floor. I've broken enough already." But Buck would not allow it. "You'll take the bed. That's the end of it." She obeyed, though her heart ached. Alone beneath the quilt, she heard Buck's steady breathing from the hearthside. Shame pressed down on her heavier than her own body. She had lied to him, humiliated him before the town, and now even his home bent and cracked under her presence. Yet in the morning she forced herself up before dawn. She swept the floor, mended the broken chair as best she could, and cooked breakfast from the supplies she found: biscuits, eggs, and fried ham. When Buck woke, the smell filled the cabin. He blinked, surprised. "You did all this?" "Yes," Lily said simply, setting a plate before him. Buck studied her for a long moment before sitting. His expression softened just a fraction. "Thank you." And though the road ahead would be difficult, Lily felt the faintest spark. Perhaps she was not entirely useless here. Perhaps in time she could prove herself worthy of a place on this mountain. The days that followed tested Lily in every way imaginable. The cabin was too small, the tools too worn, and the work harder than anything she had known in Chicago. Yet, strangely, it was the first time in her life she felt her size might not only be a curse, but also a kind of strength. At first, every task was a lesson. Buck showed her how to carry water from the stream in wooden pails, expecting she might stumble. Instead, she lifted both with ease, water sloshing but not spilling. "Stronger than you look," he muttered, though a hint of respect flickered in his voice. Chopping firewood became another test. Buck demonstrated, the axe cleaving the log in one clean strike. He handed the axe to her with a skeptical look. Lily gripped the handle, swung awkwardly at first, but when the blade sank into the wood, it split with a crack that startled even Buck. He raised an eyebrow. "You swing like you mean it." Lily flushed, embarrassed yet proud. "I've carried heavy loads my whole life. Maybe I'm not delicate, but I'm not weak." Cooking became her sanctuary. She kneaded dough with firm hands, stirred stews that filled the cabin with savory scents, baked pies from wild berries Buck brought home. One evening, when she placed a steaming venison stew before him, Buck ate in silence for a long while before saying simply, "Best meal I've had in years." The words warmed her more than the fire. At night, the two settled into a rhythm. Buck by the fire, whittling wood into tools or small figurines. Lily sewing, humming softly as she worked. The cabin, once too small for her, began to feel just right when filled with the sound of their quiet companionship. Still, the shadow of the town's cruelty lingered. When Buck took her to Pine Ridge for supplies, whispers followed them. Women laughed behind their hands. Men smirked openly. Lily lowered her eyes, but one afternoon, when a rancher sneered, "Thornton, didn't know you married yourself a mule?" Buck turned sharply. He stepped close, his voice a low growl. "You'd be wise to hold your tongue. She works harder and braver than you ever will." The rancher's grin faltered, and for the first time Lily saw Buck defend her not out of obligation, but conviction. That night, she whispered as they walked home, "Thank you for standing up for me." Buck shrugged, but his eyes met hers briefly. "Truth's truth. They don't see it, but I do." The seasons shifted. Spring softened into summer, and Lily proved herself again and again. When a heavy storm blew the roof shingles loose, she climbed the ladder beside Buck, hammer in hand, holding planks steady while he nailed them back into place. When one of the goats fell ill, she stayed up through the night with herbal poultices and warm cloths until it recovered. One evening, Buck returned from the forest, dragging a fallen deer. "Too heavy to carry the whole way," he admitted. Lily rolled up her sleeves, lifted the carcass onto her shoulders, and carried it the last stretch to the cabin. Buck stared as though seeing her anew. "You're not what I expected," he said finally, his voice gruff but softer than before. Lily swallowed hard. "I know. I'm sorry for lying in those letters, but I wanted to be wanted." Buck looked at her a long moment, the firelight flickering across his rugged features. "Maybe you're not what I asked for, but maybe you're what I needed." The words struck her like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. For the first time, Lily believed that her place here was not only tolerated, but valued. And as she lay that night beneath the cabin roof, listening to the steady crackle of the fire and the slow, even breaths of the mountain man by the hearth, she felt something she had never known in all her years of ridicule and shame. She felt at home. By late summer, Lily had woven herself into the rhythm of mountain life, but unease never strayed far. The cabin felt safe, the forest a refuge, yet whenever they descended into Pine Ridge, the townsfolk's eyes followed them like knives. "She tricked him," one woman whispered near the mercantile. "He wanted a bird, and he got a bear," another chuckled. Lily heard every word, though she kept her chin lifted. Buck bristled beside her, but his silence cut sharper than their mockery. That night, back in the cabin, Lily sat by the fire, her sewing abandoned. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. Buck paused, his knife frozen above the wood he carved. "Regret what?" "Bringing me here, standing by me." She swallowed hard. "If the town hates me, then surely they hate you too." For a long moment, only the fire crackled. Then Buck set his carving aside. "I've been an outcast before. Doesn't bother me much. But it does bother me that you still believe what they say matters more than what you've shown me here." Lily blinked, her chest tightening. He spoke without flourish, but his words carried the weight of truth. Still, another storm brewed, one she had not expected. One afternoon, while Buck was in town trading lumber, a stranger rode up the mountain path. He was tall, sharp-dressed, with slick hair and a smile too smooth to be trusted. Lily froze when he tipped his hat. "Miss Patterson," he drawled, "or should I say Mrs. Thornton?" "I'm not," she began, but he raised a hand. "Name's Edwin Harrow. I knew your brother in Chicago. Heard whispers of a giant sister who ran off west. Seems the tales weren't lies." His smile tightened. "You left debts behind, debts that don't disappear just because you hide in the woods." Lily's blood ran cold. Her brother's gambling had ruined them both. She had fled to escape not only shame, but the men who came collecting. "I owe nothing," she said, her voice trembling but firm. Harrow's eyes glittered. "Maybe not in gold, but your presence here, it's worth something. A mountain man's pride, a town's gossip, a fortune in lumber. Men like me know how to collect what's owed." When Buck returned and found Harrow loitering, his expression hardened. "You're not welcome here." Harrow only smiled wider. "I'll be back. Don't think a woman like her can disappear so easily." After he left, Lily confessed everything: the debts, the shame, the way her family had sold her dignity to pay for her brother's sins. "That's why I lied in the letters," she whispered. "I thought if I could make myself small and soft, maybe someone would finally want me." Buck listened in silence, his hands folded, his eyes unreadable. When she finished, shame burned in her throat. Then he spoke, his voice low but steady. "You're not small, you're not soft, and I don't want you to be. You carried more than any woman should have to. That's strength, not shame." Lily's tears fell freely. For the first time, someone had called her strength a gift, not a curse. But Buck knew Harrow's return was inevitable, and worse, the man's smooth words carried into town. Whispers twisted into rumors, Lily the deceiver, Buck the fool, both hiding secrets darker than anyone guessed. The town's mockery became sharper, louder, edged with contempt. One night, as they hauled firewood together, Lily said softly, "They'll never accept me. They'll always call me a lie." Buck rested the axe against the stump, his scarred hands rough and certain, as he turned toward her. "Then let them. We don't live for their acceptance. We live here, together." His words steadied her, but she could not ignore the truth. A reckoning loomed. Harrow would return. The town would not stay silent. And sooner or later, she and Buck would have to stand together or lose everything. The first frost came early that year, whitening the mountain trails and biting at the cabin shutters. Lily was hauling logs to the woodpile when the sound of hooves broke the stillness. She froze, her breath pluming in the cold air. Edwin Harrow rode into the clearing with two rough men at his back. His smug grin gleamed beneath the brim of his hat. "Afternoon, Miss Patterson. I told you I'd return." Buck stepped out of the cabin, rifle in hand, his broad frame filling the doorway. "You'll turn that horse around," he said flatly. Harrow laughed. "Don't play noble, Thornton. This woman lied her way into your home. She's property, one way or another. I'm here to collect what she owes or take her with me until the debt's satisfied." Lily's heart thudded painfully. She had lived her whole life as a burden, but never had she been called property so plainly. Rage rose in her chest, fierce and unyielding. She stepped forward, her voice sharp. "I am no man's property, not my brother's, not yours." Harrow sneered. Bold words from a woman who couldn't survive a week on her own. He jerked his chin at his men. "Take her." The two riders dismounted, spurs jangling, but Buck was already moving. He leveled the rifle, his voice a growl. "You'll not touch her." One of the men reached for his holster too slow. Buck's warning shot cracked the air, splintering the log pile inches from the man's hand. Startled, the thugs froze. Harrow's grin faltered, but he pressed on. "You'd kill for her? For a liar, a giant who made you a laughingstock?" Buck's eyes blazed. "I'd kill for her because she's mine to protect, because she's stronger than you'll ever be." For a moment, the clearing held its breath. Then Harrow cursed under his breath, yanking his reins. "This isn't finished. The law of men bends easily in a place like Pine Ridge. You'll regret crossing me." He wheeled his horse, his men scrambling after him. When the sound of hooves faded into the forest, Lily sagged against the woodpile, shaking. Buck lowered his rifle, then turned to her. "You're safe now," he said quietly. Her eyes brimmed with tears, not of fear, but of something deeper. You didn't hesitate. You chose me. Buck reached for her hand, rough fingers closing over hers. I chose you the moment I saw you wouldn't bow to their scorn. You're not small, Lily. You're vast, and that's what I need. The fire in his voice steadied the trembling in her chest. For the first time, she believed not only in his strength, but in her own worth. Winter closed in around Pine Ridge, snow drifting high against the cabin walls, but inside the fire burned bright. Lily sat near the hearth, mending Buck's flannel shirt with careful stitches. Across from her, Buck whittled a small wooden horse, his broad hand surprisingly gentle with the blade. The world outside still whispered. In town, folks said Thornton had shackled himself to a lie, that his giant bride was proof of his desperation. But those voices grew fainter the longer they stayed on the mountain. In the quiet of the cabin, none of it mattered. Lily lifted her eyes from the sewing. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Choosing me?" Buck set down his carving and met her gaze. His expression was solemn, steady as stone. "I don't regret a damn thing. You make this place alive. You make me alive." Her breath caught. For years she had been told she was too much, too heavy, too clumsy, too unlovable. Now, for the first time, she felt she was exactly enough. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "This little cabin feels like the first home I've ever had." Buck leaned forward, covering her hand with his. "Then let it be yours. If you'll have it, it'll always be yours." The words wrapped around her like a quilt, warm and steady. Lily nodded, her tears falling freely, but her smile brighter than the flames. Outside, the wind howled through the pines, carrying with it the endless scorn of a world that had never accepted her. Inside, she sat beside a man who saw her not as burden or mistake, but as partner, as home. And though challenges still loomed, hope burned strong enough to light the rest of their days. Lily and Buck's story reminds us that love is rarely what we expect. Buck longed for someone small and gentle, but what he received was a woman larger than life, strong enough to split wood, brave enough to face down cruelty, and tender enough to build a home from nothing but firelight and faith. Every time I share a tale like this, I'm reminded that true love doesn't measure size, beauty, or perfection. It measures courage, loyalty, and heart. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? And if you still believe in love against all odds, the next story is for you.